Hello everybody, MegaZardX here, back at it again to give y'all another very exciting video. And recently we did manage to get a big major news updates in terms of Square Enix's financial reports, and they were going through and running through the numbers of like, something is not adding up. Because we know they like to do some console exclusive with certain partners such as PlayStation, like for example, Final Fantasy 16. However, when they're starting to run through the numbers and stuff, things just did not add up for them to where they had to make a major decision, say, you know what, we're just going to truly embrace third party, and we're going to try to put our games out there on every single platform they possibly can, and moving away from like console exclusives, like with the partnerships of like where it's just only PlayStation, only Nintendo though. So they're trying to get it out there on everything. Like Sony, they're going to try to get out there on Nintendo Switch. Obviously, they definitely want to capitalize on that Japan market, Xbox, PC, and everything. And then that got me to start to think and wonder, are console exclusives more so a thing of the past? Even with Sony, they used to have their games as console exclusives like during the PS3, PS4 era, but in the PS5 era onward, because of these big ballooning costs for these budgets, they have to start putting the games on PC as well though. And then obviously Xbox has managed to do their thing with Game Pass and stuff. So just looking at all of that, it just made me start to think and wonder, yes, are console exclusives a thing of the past though? So that is what we're going to be going through and discussing within today's video though. So if you hadn't already done so, make sure to go ahead and hit that like button, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and that bell to stay up to date on all things video game related I feel like talking about and discussing. But without any further ado, let's go and jump straight up into this video. So lately, Square Enix managed to come out within their most recent fiscal report saying, hey, the numbers aren't just adding up. We are not basically making as much money as what we used to in the past in terms of our profits. Like, for example, if you look at the Final Fantasy series and you were, for the longest time, especially in the PS2 era and stuff like that, everybody and their mama knew about Final Fantasy and how well that sucker sold at the beginning, mid, and at the end of console lives. However, you look at the most three recent Final Fantasy games, that series in particular has been taking a little bit more of a nosedive. If you look at the sales of, Final Fantasy VII Remake, that was shy a little bit underneath 10 million copies sold. Then if you look at Final Fantasy 16, that was a little underneath 4 million copies sold. And then if you look at the most recent game that came out, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, we don't have any updated numbers, at least on that game as it is right now. If you notice that trend, 10 million down to 4 million, down to an unknown factor, you're not going the right way in terms of your overall sales. But what do all three of these games have in common? Yes, they were all exclusive to the PS5 platform when it originally launched. It was just only on the PS5. It wasn't even available on PC at that moment, or any other consoles though. Now that's the major thing I think you can take away from this example though, is at one time maybe fans really loved the Final Fantasy series and they really associated it strongly within the PlayStation brand though. However, with these ballooning budgets and stuff like that, these games aren't necessarily cheap to make anymore, and they definitely got to make sure they recoup all of their costs in order to actually turn a profit up on this thing. And making it exclusive to just the PlayStation platform in general, I mean, it is kind of rubbing people off the wrong way. Some people really love the turn-based combat and stuff within the series, and you didn't necessarily get that within the remake stuff. And obviously, they're trying to appeal to a lot of the Western gamers out there who really love shooters or action RPGs versus just standard turn-based that maybe the Japan market might typically like the most, though. But, it is kind of something to think about, though. And just within that one example itself, and then along with some other games that Square Enix has sold, they're saying, you know what, we're going to fully embrace third-party. We're going to try to get this thing out there everywhere, like PlayStation, Xbox, PC, and especially Nintendo. Because if you look at the Japan side of things though, that market is almost heavily dictated by the Nintendo Switch's success. Like, the Nintendo Switch is the highest selling console over there in the Japan market now. So if Square Enix really wants to sell a lot of games on their home turf, they're going to have to cater to the Nintendo audience. So I think especially moving from this point forward, especially with the Nintendo Switch 2 coming out on the distant horizon, they're definitely going to have to plan a lot more of their games centered around that to tap more so into that marketplace as well though. So that's just a lot of things to kind of keep in mind. Now, if we go ahead and flip it over here to the PlayStation side of things, we know PlayStation loved to sell their games on the PS2, PS3, PS4 though, but recently in the PS5 generation, a lot more of their games have been coming to the PC market. Now, we usually know PlayStation only usually do console exclusives, with their God of Wars and stuff like that, or Horizons, or The Last of Us and stuff like that, only on the PlayStation systems though. But because of these ballooning budget costs, like we've seen some of the leaked information from Insomniac Games, these projects aren't necessarily cheap to make. When these budgets cost over a few $100 million, they know they have to manage to make up the cost somewhere else. And if for some reason, if they're not making it up within the PS5 ecosystem, they got to take that money somewhere else. So they started to put even more of their games on PC. So usually you'll see a console exclusive, be on the console for almost about a year or so, and then they'll manage to drop it out on PC. And I feel like PlayStation, they're going to try to shorten that time frame a little bit shorter though. And for example, the most recent thing, Helldivers 2, that managed to drop out on PlayStation and PC both on day one. That's obviously a really huge success. They didn't necessarily expect that or anything like that though. It definitely sold a little north over 10 million units, so it might have been like a 60-40 ratio, 60% on PC, 40% on PlayStation though. But hey, whenever a game sells that good, then hey, you manage to make that cost and then some more. So they're definitely looking at that game in particular and say, hey, this is definitely the direction we need to go forward in the future though. Then you go ahead and flip over here the Xbox. Xbox during that era and the 360 era, they were on the top of their game more so, especially that 360 era though. But then beyond that, Xbox One and stuff like that, that's when they really started pushing that Game Pass service. And they just wanted you to play everywhere though. They kind of already had the mindset of, looking really far in the future and saying, hey, look, gaming is going to be more than just playing on a dedicated console. It's just the ease of access stuff. So that's why they got you trying to play on your TVs and stuff, on your smartphones via the cloud service and stuff. And then obviously PC though. So for them, for the longest time, they didn't necessarily have like an exclusive that's just only on their Xbox console. Like you were able to play on a lot of different services and stuff like that though. So, between all of these different examples between Xbox, PlayStation, and then some of the third parties like Square Enix, everybody got the mantra of, yes, game budgets are going up. It's taking almost like 2 or 3 times as longer as what it took to make like a PS2 game back in the day though. Like some of these games had development cycles of almost 5 to 6 years. That's the whole life of a thinking console, which is one of the reasons why we have so many different companies out there, such as Xbox buying up Bethesda or Activision Blizzard and stuff like that. We're starting to get into these acquisition wars. But whenever you're not able to actually turn like a really great profit on it to appease some of those higher up people, then we started getting all of these different layoffs and stuff like that. Maybe they hired too much during the COVID era and stuff, and then they kind of account for that. There could be a whole lot of myriad different reasons why some of the successes did not lead to what they were expecting, hence all of the layoffs and stuff like that though. So when you factor in all of these different reasons, that's some of the reasons why that a lot of these companies are saying, hey, you know what, these console exclusives are going to be almost more so a thing of the past. They're trying to get these games out there on any kind of service that they can, whether it be PC, their own ecosystem. Yes, even the competition, like what we've seen with Xbox and stuff. And yes, we already known Xbox to put other games on other platforms and stuff, but even recently we saw Sea of Thieves and stuff and Grounded come to like the PlayStation. And one of or a couple of those games managed to get over there to Nintendo Switch as well though. Now, give credit where credit is due. Like Nintendo is probably the only one that's fully dedicated on the console exclusives, and they're still somehow successful doing all of this stuff, at least up until the Nintendo Switch era. Now things is going to get a little bit trickier, or maybe a little bit more dicey in terms of the Switch 2 era, when they possibly going to have like a system that might be stronger than like a PS4 Pro or something like that, on the lines of like close to an Xbox Series S. I know they're going to be using DLSS to probably try to upscale their stuff to try to attempt 4K and stuff. But given all of that, they even had some of their people even say that, hey, development stuff is going to take a little bit longer. It's going to be a little bit more challenging and stuff like that though. So come up with some great strategies in order to still have all of their great exclusives come out to their console, and still hopefully still manage to give us a news update where they're like, hey, we got a game dropping out in this direct and it's going to be coming out a few months later. I give credit where credit's due. I love how Nintendo can basically announce something at a direct, and then like a few months later or a little later on in the year, then hey, here's that game, instead of being like a PlayStation where they'll be like, hey, they showcase off Spider-Man 2, and then a whole year later, then we finally managed to see them showcase off that game to us in greater extent, because the game is finally coming out within that actual year though. So yeah, definitely give credit to Nintendo where credit's due. Obviously, they have other major driving factors to bring you over within their ecosystem in order to make those console exclusive viable to consumers, because you look at consoles such as the Wii, where they added in motion control and stuff like that. Then you look at the Wii U, where they actually tried to do dual screens. Well, I guess we know that system wasn't super successful. It was kind of the launching point or the building off point for the Nintendo Switch, which, you know, took all of the Wii U stuff and brought it out to its full capacity, and where you're actually able to have a hybrid nature where you're able to have both console as well as a handheld device. And that also inspired a whole bunch of other, you know, gaming PCs in terms of like these handheld PCs for like things like as the Asus ROG Ally, as well as the Steam Deck, where, hey, you know what, there are a group of people out there that love to play their games portably, but then also have the option to be able to play it, you know, docked or in a PC environment though. So, you know what, give a lot of credit where credit is due for Nintendo. So they have a lot of things kind of going for them to kind of keep their customers within their ecosystem. And luckily, they don't manage to kind of chase behind the curve in terms of the graphics and stuff. They always kind of stay like a step behind. And that was a strategic strategy by them, because that allowed their development costs not to be nearly as high. It allows their developers to be able to work with something and still be able to get it out in a reasonable time, versus taking a whole entire console's life to make a game. Like you look at Monolith Soft, they managed to make, you know, Xenoblade 2, Xenoblade 3, as well as remastering Xenoblade 1, all within the Switch's life cycle. 3 games, a whole entire trilogy though. So yeah, so honestly, whenever you look at all of these different companies and stuff, it's going to be sad to see, you know, console exclusives become more so a thing of the past. I think Nintendo's the main one that's going to be holding it up though, but it's just something that we're all going to have to embrace, because, you know, games just aren't cheap anymore. So that about does it in terms of this video right here. So y'all gotta let me know down in the comment section down below what all that you think about this. Like, do you think, you know, console exclusives are definitely becoming more so a thing of the past? Like, I love Square Enix as a developer and stuff, but you know, they got to do what they got to do in order to get all of their games out there to the widest audience as possible though, because I don't want to see games that are really good be canceled because of the fact of how they're not managing to sell enough, even though the potential is just there though. And that's the Square Enix. Who knows what Capcom might be possibly thinking, and other companies such as Sega and stuff like that though. But y'all gotta let me know down in the comment section down below what all do you think about this video though. But that's gonna basically do it for this one right here. So if you really like this, make sure to go and hit that like button, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and that bell to stay up to date on all things video game related I feel like talking about and discussing. So remember y'all, until whatever video I make next, see y'all.